you're not late, you're right on time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You couldn't, shoulda, woulda been able to know this before now. Just show up and be you. Do you. You're really good at it. Not the fake you. And what's really exciting too is when we choose to be vulnerable, like bring to a relationship something that is real about us, something we're struggling with, or something that is matters. That act of vulnerability then makes us trustworthy in a small space. And so more and more acts of that are the things that actually draw people to us. Welcome to another episode of What to Say and How to Say It. Today, we're going to be talking about costume jewelry Christianity. So maybe you're a case of costume jewelry Christianity. Maybe you're not, but how are you going to know if you don't stick with us till the end? And if you are, if you find yourself in this situation, we're going to give you some tips today on how to change your relationships. Now, I know it's normal for us to want to pretend and present a certain side of things so that people think XYZ. And what we're going to just come together on today, what we're going to pull apart and look at is how that's in your way and how being vulnerable, being authentic is going to help you score more home runs in the kingdom and in your relationships. I'm with our favorite licensed professional counselor, Kyle Hargrove, and we're going to dig into this today. Kyle, you got some thoughts on, you got some thoughts on costume Christianity. What's up?
I got my thoughts on. Yeah, you can see what kind of rapper I would be. So not a very good one. Well, it's an interesting topic. I know you and I both have had experiences in the different types of work that we've done within and outside of ministry that reveal a lot about people that they would rather not have revealed. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a matter of having dirty laundry aired. It's a matter of crushing the facade that they put on. It's a matter of, knowing that now other people will know that this life that we have is not as pretty on the outside as we would like for you to have thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Or even that we thought it was, right? Like when I first became a Christian, I signed up. I'm like, give me the deadline. I'm signing on to the myth. And I didn't know it was a myth at the time, but I thought I had to act, do a certain way because I was now in the club. And so you have to show up on Sunday looking XYZ and you got to have it all together. And I was like, this stinks. I don't get it. Like now I just get to have more pressure and pretend to even, be something I'm not at a higher level. Like I'm supposed to be Jesus now. This is not working at all.
Yeah. And ironically, that's one of the things that I really like about the modern church. And I'm talking about the really modern church, like, the last 20 years is it matters less what you look like and what you're dressed in when you come to church than it did when I was growing up. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with dressing up. It's just very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that now we're opening ourselves and say, come as you are. You don't have to put on, from the ground level, you don't have to put on. That starts with what you're wearing. You don't have to put on. That starts with doing your hair. Now that's not a problem for me any longer, but it's like it was. I'm not saying people shouldn't dress well for church, but nor should it be a fashion contest, nor should it be something where, people come in to say, we've got spirit. Yes, we do. Point to the other people and find out, what do you got? What are you bringing to the party today? So, just the idea of authenticity and genuineness seems to at times pass us by. And I think if a lot of us would work just as hard on building ourselves, where the character counts as we do pretending that we have all these things, and that we are all these things and that we can do all these things. I think we'd be pretty well off if we spend as much time actually doing it as we do pretending that we do it.
One of my favorite things to tell clients and class members, and it lines up with exactly what you just said, is you're not late, you're right on time.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. You couldn't, should have, would have been able to know this before now. You know, just show up and be you. Do you. You're really good at it. You know, not the fake you. And what's really exciting too is when we choose to be vulnerable, like bring to a relationship something that is real about us, something we're struggling with, or something that is matters. That act of vulnerability then makes us trustworthy in a small space. And so more and more acts of that are the things that actually draw people to us. I spend more time, I didn't know this was a thing. It just really bothered me that people in churches, and I'm not going to label them all as the same because there's, like you said, there's a lot that are not like this. And I love the church, but there's some that if you walk in and you're not wearing XYZ, you get stared at and judged. Like you can tell it's happening. I've been there. But the thing that's so neat is that there's nothing real about that. There's nothing attractive about that. And so when we started doing ministry years ago, I have so many things that I've screwed up. It was pretty easy to find stories to tell. And people, it was a little demoralizing, honestly. After class one night, this woman comes up to me and she goes, "I am so glad that you are such a screw up." And it's like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
yeah. Thanks. Why? Like, really? And she goes, "Yeah, you make mistakes and yet you show up and you're just here with us and you seem happy and joyful and you're really okay." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's true." And she goes, "But you make mistakes, like big ones." And then she went into detail, reiterating some of the story I told that night. I don't even remember what it is right now, but it was a doozy. And I remember thinking, well, I'm glad that inspired you so very much, you know, but it gives people permission to be who they are, which
Yeah.
is imperfect.
Well, and if you want to give people permission to be who they are, you got to give them permission to come in broken.
Hmm.
And it's difficult. I think all of us can probably point back to a place in our lives where we were broken, but we didn't want people to know how broken. And it was
Hmm.
really hard for us to go
Yeah.
somewhere for help. But I think one of the things that we have to realize, when we're a part of ministry is, uh, when people come in the door, they're really not interested in the color of the carpet.
Nope.
They're really, they could care less how many ranks your pipe organ has in it. They're not interested in that. When they come in the door, they're going to be asking, if not now, sooner or later, they're going to be asking, can you help me where I hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're
Yeah.
not
Is
looking for
this?
that, if we're not looking for that, if we're looking to be more judgmental, and I think the church sometimes is very good about being judgmental in
Yeah.
a very bad way. And I think that's part of the reason that people won't or don't either admit to the things they struggle with, or they won't even show up.
Yeah.
They won't come through the door to say, I need help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We started our first official organized marriage intensive last week, and I've got 10 people in this thing. And one of the most beautiful things I saw was one of the couples, the husband had actually filed for divorce already. And at one point, he said, I had no idea that there were other options. I think I have just never been taught all this stuff. And I have other ways of being, something to that effect. And he was, a little teared up about it. And it was just really a powerful moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so happy to hear him say that. And, people were talking about, the things that they hadn't done right and all of that. And I said, the thing you need to understand is that God knows all this and he loves you 100% right now, as much as he's ever loved you and as much as he's ever going to love you. Like there is nothing you can do, say, or think or be that can increase the amount of love he has for you right now. I mean,
Yes.
you've got all of him and you always have. And so out of that, then he knows you're going to make mistakes and he's with you in them. He doesn't expect you to be perfect at it. None of us are. And it was just such a neat experience to be able to encourage people that, probably a month ago were so discouraged, and worried about where are they in this whole scheme of things, and what's their future hold, and what's the possibility, and have them see hope in a space. But it comes from, I talked a lot about mistakes that I'd made, and you have to be careful doing that, because you don't want to do it in a way that, shares somebody else's story. But I've made plenty of parenting mistakes I can talk about from my end, marriage mistakes from my end, and what's going on inside of me. And it makes the environment something that is easy for people to say, I'm safe here. I'm not going to be judged.
Mhm.
And I think the best churches do that. They create that environment.
Yeah, they have to create it by living it. They have to create it by refusing to create pretense,
Mm.
by refusing to pretend they're good at things they're not good at. And I'm talking about the individuals in the church,
Mm-hmm.
by refusing to come trying to convince people that you're something that you're not.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, uh, before I testified in court hundreds of times. I remember the
Mm.
first testifying in court on the behalf of a child that I was seeing through CPS. And the questions that the defense attorney had asked me early on in my testimony felt very personal to me. He had tried to
Mm.
attack my credibility, my education, some different things like that, and to
Ouch.
make it look like I was not qualified to be in this position. And somewhere along the questioning line, I was asked if I knew anything about the parents and their behaviors. And I said, well, I am aware that they have been indicted by a grand jury. And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, do you even know what being indicted by a grand jury is? And I said, yes, because I watch a lot of Law and Order. And
Oof.
there was some reaction in the gallery. However, the most intense reaction came from the judge, and
Ouch.
he very very politely asked me to refrain from answering questions like that,
Mhm.
and I had to learn later that we're all just doing our jobs, and he was not my enemy, and it was not as personal as it felt. I'm still not sure if I believe that. But the bottom line of it is, we'll do anything and we'll cover up in any way to make it look like we're credible in areas where we're really not. We
Mhm.
want to be known. Okay.
Yeah.
As children of God, we want to be known. We want God to know us. But it extends beyond that too. We want to be known in the community and in the church and by our family. We want to be known as people who have skill sets, who have experiences, who have all different kinds of things that make us credible. And sometimes it's at best skirting the truth.
Oh, or at worst, creepy. Like I was at a youth group event for junior high, and I met one of the other parents, and he had the joy, 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 joy down in his heart, right? I mean, it was the weirdest thing. He's like, "Sister, how are you? Let me hug you." Oh, I just praise. He's hugging me and he's speaking these words and it was creepy. Like, I just met you, you want to hug me, and now you're talking to me like this with all this emotion. I thought he was going to burst into flames or something and start speaking, prophesying or something. Like, and I don't have anything against that, but it was the weirdest experience and none of it felt natural.
And
None
you
of
didn't
it.
want to go with him. So,
I didn't want him around my kid.
yeah.
I'm like, what is with this guy that he's like that? Like, nobody's like that. And I bought now, having criticized, judged that behavior as inappropriate, which I just did, which is sin on my part, I suppose. But I have done something similar, right? I have stuffed. How are you doing today? And I've had something not awesome happening, or I have chronic pain, and I'm whatever, and I'm fine. Oh, I'm good. Everything's good. God's good. And it's like, well, yeah, God is good. That's true. And
Yeah.
yeah, you are fine. That's true. But what's really true right now is that your feet hurt so much you're having a hard time walking today, Nina. That's what's actually true. So I stopped saying I'm fine. I stopped saying, oh, I'm all good. I stopped lying, and I could, but what I didn't become was a complainer either. Right. So
Right.
you have that surface level. Hey, how are you? Hi, smile, polite, wave, all that. And you go in because you're not going to tell, the first 7 people you see about your appendix about being ruptured or, whatever it is, your spleen problems or whatever it is. But you have to be authentic. And so what does that look like? Things have been tough, but I'm hanging in there. Thanks for asking. How are you? You have a different perspective, and you don't skirt the truth, you don't pretend, and you don't have the polished perfection thing going on. Yeah,
Right.
go ahead, because I'm gonna get on a soapbox. I don't need to do that.
Well, I mean, the last thing we want to do is frighten people away from being a part of whatever it is that we're a part of, because everybody there is too perfect. But
Exactly.
I think historically the church has kind of created that problem for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't think the church is nearly as judgmental now as it even was, in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that judgment has caused people to say, I'm not like them, therefore I won't fit in. Therefore, if I even decide to go, then I have to act like them, or I have to
Mm-hmm.
act like I've got all these things together when actually my life is a dumpster fire.
Yep.
And then there's there's the deal of, okay, if I'm going to be really honest with you, this is going to take a while. and I don't
Yeah.
I don't want to occupy all of the time that we
Mm-hmm.
might have in this scenario, whatever it might be. And I've done some occupying of time with some brothers before. I'm telling you,
Mm.
I've dominated some accountability meetings that we promised to each other in that scenario, and in that environment and with those relationships, that this is why we're here. And the other guys have dominated sometimes as well. And that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
we
and
all
it's
have stuff.
beautiful. It's good that you have that. Like, there's a lot of people, men especially, no offense to your gender, but a lot of men won't take that brave step. And a lot of people think accountability means you're going to ask me how my smoking habit, my nicotine cessation program is going. No, accountability is I bring myself to you with this thing I'm struggling with, and I ask you to pray for me, and I let you know how I'm doing. I'm showing up real. If you look at all the biblical accounts of accountability, that's what's going on there. That's a leadership space where, as leaders, we step in and we initiate, versus parental, which is, did you do your chores? That kind of stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that's God wants us to come broken. He wants us, to come to one another and to come to Him, recognizing that that we have weakness, recognizing that there are things that we want to be and that we desire to be, that we within our own power don't have the ability to create.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that uh, I've been told by others that I can be a little bit controlling at times, and that sometimes creates the scenario where I'm not allowing God to be the one in control.
Mm.
And we won't go into those details, of course, because that's not what this is for. But it's true. It's true. Sometimes the greater the stress, the more I feel like I've got to work. I've got to work
Mm-hmm.
this. I've got to work this out. Sometimes even as a therapist, probably not so much now, but I know a long time ago, we would get into something where I really hadn't walked before with people, and I wish I had known then what I know now, which the most de-stressing thing to do and say in that situation is, you know what, I'm not really familiar with that, but let me see what I can find out about it.
Hmm.
instead of pretending and going along with it, because that's much more work and much more stress.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. And what a joy it was and a relief to find out that not just as a person, but as a professional, I didn't have to put on airs.
Right.
I didn't have to pretend that I was something that I wasn't. And I think people really appreciate that more.
Hmm.
Uh, just just showing up as a real person rather than someone who's at one level or another better than the people around them.
Yeah.
And they're
Well, in
not.
the Bible tells us to consider others as better than ourselves, right? And so that makes us want to honor them, which means that we shouldn't pretend. I've had a couple of clients that have been like, "Oh, I love you. I really want to help you. I don't think I can. I think this needs this other thing. Why don't you go see this other person?" And I've referred them off to, DBT is one of my favorite things, because it's such a wonderful program. Dialectical behavior therapy is just, the double blind gold standard, all of that. Linehan's work is amazing. And if you have somebody that's super emotional, coaching is for later after the emotionality stuff is worked through. That can happen. But it's in the way, and so if we've got somebody that just can't get through those emotional things, there's so many things they can learn in 6 months of DBT that will change their lives forever. Um, and I don't think coaching does a good job with that. Like there is no mechanism in coaching that is as good as DBT. So, and it'd be arrogant and honestly, I think unethical, to keep somebody and take their money when they need help that that they could get from somebody else.
Right.
So, and I think God rewards that. You show up real. It doesn't matter whether it's in your marriage or whether it's in your profession, in your parenting. You show up real. You tell your kids, "Hey, I don't know what to do with this. I'm struggling with this thing you told me. I don't want to. Can you help me understand what's going on here? I want to learn more about it." Versus going off and pretending like you're the expert about everything and whatever. Being real gives other people the permission to be real.
What a tremendous gift to give to your children, being genuine. They're probably smarter than we give them credit for anyway.
Oh,
They
always.
they kind of can.
Yeah.
If we're struggling with something and trying to pretend like we're not, they're some of the first ones that can pick up on that. And they may not know exactly what's going on, but they know something is.
Mm-hmm.
But what a gift to give them, to be genuine, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, and say, "Hey guys, we're going through this, whatever this might be, and it's something I really never have thought about, planned for, and I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to talk about it together. We're going to pray about it together. We're going to talk to some people who do, and you know, and find out." It was never an issue when it came to mechanical things when my boys were growing up to know that this guy's not one. I am not a mechanical thing, and I come by that honestly. That's the solution to every mechanical issue for men in my family typically has been get a bigger hammer. Um, if unplugging it and plugging it back in doesn't fix it, then we take it apart, put it back together, and have parts left over. And amazingly,
Awesome.
that even works. But
Wow.
just to be open about anything as simple as that and as
Mm-hmm.
complicated as family issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do. I'm stuck.
Yeah. Well, that's the only place you can learn anything. And that then opens, well, I think that's the thing people just don't know in their parenting is that when you admit that, you just took a whole lot of pressure off your kids
Yes.
because they think that even when they suspect that you don't, the pressure of you have to pretend that even when you don't, they can't deal with that. And so it's very, very stressful, anxiety producing. So, yeah, one of my kids asked me one time, "Well, should I go to this college? Should I do this thing?" And I looked at him and said, "I have no idea. Like, I think you need to pray about that. And I will pray with you. I can't tell you what to do. This is your decision." And he did not like that answer at that time. It ended up getting figured out, and he ended up making choices that were right for him. It was bumpy. We just walked with him. You know, they all eventually figure themselves out. Goal is they don't live in your basement forever. And
Amen.
amen. And what's funny is, they had a tornado at their house. We had a tornado at our house too, the same day, as a matter of fact, but they were out of power. They were out. We have the generator. So he brought his little family here to live with us, and we loved it. But we've got such an honest, safe relationship thing going, that he could say, "Hey, I'm in trouble. Can we?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely," in a heartbeat. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you long for as a parent of adult children, is that when they need help, they'll ask for it because they don't have to pretend like they've got it together, and
Yeah.
nobody thinks less of anybody for asking for help. Matter of fact, people want to help. They love to help. So, but we don't force it on anybody either. This is beautiful balance that has to be step by step navigated.
See, that's what having a standard that you feel like you have to live up to. And I don't care where it is. I don't care whether it's church or at work or with your family or with your friends. It encourages this overthinking. Mm-hmm. It encourages it because we have to stay one step ahead of whatever else is going on. What am I going to say next? What am I going to do next? I've got to pretend I fit in here, even if I feel like I don't. And so the overthinking tends, in most situations, to cause us to catastrophize. I like to call it awfulizing, because that's a lot easier to say, but we awfulize the potential outcome of what's going on. And it so much impacts what we do and don't do and how we do it. And it's not even necessary. Mm-hmm. Being authentic and genuine I think it's a practiced skill, because we all want to look good. Mm-hmm. We all want to look good, no matter where we find ourselves. And, if we can play the part well enough for long enough, then hopefully we can convince people that we are good. And, what's missing is that there are places where our heart is aching. Mm-hmm. There are things that are going on in our family or in our professional, in our career, where we just feel like we're at the end of something and we don't know what to do about it. And we can't find that place between just complaining about stuff all the time and pretending like all is golden. Mm-hmm. And I think this is somewhere in between.
You're absolutely right. The genuineness of what's real and how to show up in that takes real strength. You have to know what it is in the first place. And then you have to be okay with yourself enough to risk the judgment of other people. And, I was reading Gottman's book on trust. It's a textbook full of data and numbers and things. And one of the neat things, one of the things that is just, his ways are not our ways. God's ways are not our ways. And so by risking vulnerability, we actually build trust. Yes. So, and it's a hard thing to walk, but when you do that, you create the relationship that you're longing for, and you have to navigate the bumps, and it doesn't just happen without work. It's worth doing. So today we've been talking about, is your life, are you a case of Christian costume jewelry, if you will, something like that. And I think we've landed on, being Jesus, who was, he wept, he was tired, he was hungry, he was exasperated once, he flipped a few tables over, he was compassionate, but he was very real. And that's my favorite thing about him, is he was authentic and real. And so that's kind of our takeaway today. So thanks for sharing some of the insights and some of the things that you've seen as part of your professional counseling career in this space. And, if you want to stop by our website, guys, get some more info on this, greaterimpact.org. You can find a booklet called 5 Tools to Stop Walking on Eggshells. And if you're interested, we did a conversation last episode about, how do you reduce stress in your relationships? So some of these things are stress inducing that we've talked about today. So how do you reduce stress? So, might pop back to one of those episodes and learn more about that. Have a great day.